that appear to document deadly violence against protesters following Tanzania's disputed election of October 29th. President Samia Suluhu Hassan claimed victory with 98% of the vote. The official outcome sparked widespread protests during which government security forces killed hundreds of people, according to the opposition.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Voice of Africa, your trusted source for factual and detailed reports across the continent. Today, we begin in Tanzania, where the nation remains tense following shocking reports of post-election violence and allegations of secret burials carried out by security forces. But before we dive into the details, please take a moment to like this video. It helps YouTube recommend it to more people who want accurate African news told from an African perspective. Now let's turn to the story that has left many in disbelief. Recent days have seen a wave of disturbing reports coming from Tanzania's largest city, Dar es Salaam. Videos circulating online show chaotic scenes, tear gas filling the air, gunshots echoing through the streets, and terrified citizens running for cover. The unrest erupted following the country's presidential election on October 29th, a vote that has now become one of the most contested in Tanzania's history. Citizens had gone to the polls expecting a peaceful process. But as results trickled in, it became evident that the ruling party had secured yet another overwhelming victory. The opposition, however, cried foul, calling the election neither free nor fair. Protesters poured into the streets, demanding transparency and accountability. What followed next shocked the nation. Security forces were deployed in large numbers. Witnesses described scenes of panic as officers fired live ammunition and tear gas into crowds. For several days, Tanzania was under a partial curfew, with the internet shut down across the country, a move that effectively silenced citizens trying to share evidence of what was happening on the ground. When the restrictions were finally lifted, horrifying images began to surface. Videos showed bodies lying in the streets, hospitals overflowing with injured civilians, and families searching desperately for missing loved ones. According to the main opposition party, Chadema, more than 800 people may have lost their lives in the violence.
The number could even be higher, but I think it could be running into the hundreds. The police are shooting, aiming at demonstrators, and in fact, the response from the government is emboldening the demonstrators.
Though these numbers remain unverified, they paint a grim picture of a nation in turmoil. Adding to the controversy are claims that security forces have been secretly collecting the bodies of protesters from hospitals and burying them in undisclosed locations. John Heche, Chadema's vice chairman, who was arrested earlier in October and later charged with terrorism, has accused authorities of trying to hide the scale of the killings. In his statement, he alleged that many of the dead were taken away at night and buried in mass graves to prevent public outrage. So far, President Samia Suluhu Hassan's government has neither confirmed nor denied the reported death toll. Instead, the newly sworn-in president has blamed foreign elements for fueling the unrest, suggesting that many of those arrested during the protests were not Tanzanian citizens. In her first official speech after the election, she urged the security agencies to restore order and ensure that the country returns to normalcy, insisting that Tanzania must quickly regain its stability. However, human rights organizations and international observers have raised serious concerns. Human Rights Watch released a statement condemning the violent suppression of protesters and the excessive use of force by security forces. The organization called on Tanzanian authorities to hold those responsible accountable, emphasizing that shooting unarmed civilians violates both national and international law. Observers from regional and international bodies also weighed in. A preliminary report by a regional African bloc noted that the elections fell short of democratic standards. The governments of the United Kingdom, Norway, and Canada echoed similar concerns, saying there were credible reports of widespread violence and fatalities. Yet despite growing international attention, Tanzania's leadership remains firm, continuing to control the flow of information inside the country and maintaining a heavy presence of security personnel in major cities. To gain a deeper understanding of the situation, analysts across the continent have shared their insights. Among them is political commentator Kanye Mugabani from Johannesburg, who argues that the Tanzanian government is in denial about the magnitude of the crisis. According to him, the facts are visible to everyone. We've seen the videos, we've seen the bodies, and we've heard the cries from families who have lost loved ones.
Human Rights Watch on Tuesday condemned the violent crackdown on protesters in Tanzania after last week's disputed election. Demonstrators took to the streets across the country to denounce what they said was not a free or fair vote. Security forces fired live bullets and tear gas canisters at protesters.
He added that the political environment leading up to the election was already charged with tension. Opposition figures were arrested or silenced, rallies were disrupted, and citizens who spoke out against the ruling party faced intimidation.
Rights
activists and Tanzania's political opposition say the government's killing hundreds of people.
Mugabani said the violence is a clear reflection of democratic decay, a sign that power is being maintained through fear rather than legitimacy. In his words, Tanzania is walking a dangerous path. When a government refuses to acknowledge the pain of its people, when information is blocked, and when opposition leaders are jailed, it's no longer a democracy. It becomes a dictatorship. He further expressed disappointment with the African Union, criticizing the continental body for congratulating President Hassan, despite clear signs that the elections did not meet international standards. This, he said, is a travesty of justice. It shows that Tanzanians may have to rely on their own strength to rebuild their democracy. Mugabani also reminded viewers of Tanzania's historical importance to the African liberation struggle. The country once served as a safe haven for freedom fighters fleeing apartheid and colonial rule. It was a land of solidarity, where African unity was not just a slogan, but a lived reality. To see such a country descend into repression and bloodshed, he said, is painful not only for Tanzanians, but for the entire African continent. Indeed, Tanzania has long been seen as a beacon of stability in East Africa. Its founding leader, Julius Nyerere, promoted unity and peace, laying the foundation for decades of political calm. But today, many fear that legacy is under threat. The current crisis could undo years of progress, affecting not only Tanzania's internal stability, but also the region's economic and political balance. Experts warn that prolonged unrest could scare away investors, disrupt trade across East Africa, and deepen poverty among ordinary citizens. The tourism industry, one of Tanzania's main economic pillars, has already been hit hard, with travelers canceling trips amid safety concerns. Local markets are also struggling, as curfews and fear of violence keep people indoors. Looking ahead, analysts believe the solution lies in dialogue, transparency, and accountability. The government must open space for independent investigations into the reported killings and ensure justice for the victims. Human rights defenders are calling for the release of detained opposition members and activists, and for restrictions on the press and internet to be lifted completely. The African Union and regional bodies, meanwhile, are under pressure to act. Many Africans feel that silence from continental institutions only emboldens leaders who abuse their power. The people of Tanzania, they argue, deserve more than statements. They deserve solidarity and concrete action. Kanye Mugabani concluded his interview with a strong message. Africa cannot afford to normalize bloodshed after elections. Every life lost weakens our democracy. The world is watching, but more importantly, Africa is watching. The people of Tanzania must not be abandoned. Despite the ongoing tension, a sense of resilience remains among ordinary Tanzanians. In several towns, citizens continue to hold peaceful gatherings, lighting candles in memory of those who have died. On social media, Tanzanian youth are using creative ways to spread awareness, sharing stories, art, and messages of unity, even under tight censorship. For many, this moment is about reclaiming their voice and their right to be heard. They are calling for justice, not just for the victims of violence, but for the future of their nation. Their courage echoes across Africa, reminding us that democracy is not given freely. It is defended through persistence, hope, and truth. As Tanzania navigates this dark chapter, one thing is clear. The struggle for freedom and fairness continues. The people's demand is simple. They want their voices to count, their votes to matter, and their rights to be protected. Here on Voice of Africa, we will continue to follow this story closely, bringing you the latest verified developments and perspectives from the ground. Because Africa deserves to be informed, and Africa's stories must be told by Africans themselves. If you found this report informative, please like this video so more viewers can discover it. And don't forget to subscribe to Voice of Africa for more in-depth coverage of issues shaping our continent. Stay with us for the truth, the facts, and the voice that unites Africa.